I am now recording this. So this is kind of fun too. You can record these Zoom things. And so I'll put this up on YouTube today or tomorrow for anybody who couldn't actually be here on time. So that's kind of cool. But at any rate, I will be doing more of these for sure, because a lot of people are interested in it. And I don't know, you guys got something better to do? Like you're tired of, you watched all the Netflix things already? You've seen all the things about the drug dealers and the chefs and the, you know, old rock musicians, whatever. That's like 90% of their content, I guess. I highly recommend Better Call Saul on Netflix. Starts off really slow. Best written show on TV. Maybe not the best show on TV, but as a writer, oh my God, do I appreciate the writing on that show. So they have the first 4 seasons, I think, on Netflix, if you haven't checked it. It's a prequel to Breaking Bad. It's got a very different flavor than Breaking Bad. Anyway, why am I talking about TV? We're here about culture and fiction and poetry and all of that good stuff. So without further ado, I'll just also briefly discuss our readers tonight. First up is going to be Joe McAvoy from Portland. And then we're going to have, see, can I remember what I said 15 minutes ago? Karen Lillis from Pittsburgh. Then we'll have Rebecca Weiner Tompkins from Nashville. And then it's going to be Anton Yakovlev from an undisclosed location in New Jersey. And then Sharon Mesmer from Brooklyn. Yeah, and then maybe if there's a couple of minutes, I might read something from my book, which I guess I should, you know, plug right now. Here's my book. You can get this on Amazon, on Kindle. It's like it's a meta noir comedy. People like it. It's all right. I'm not fucking William Faulkner. What do you want out of me? But it's pretty good. I give it 4 out of 5 stars myself. So, all right. Without further ado, Joe, are you ready?
Yeah.
You do. You're unmuted, ready to go. I'm going to click on speaker view so we can see you, so I can see your face big. Here we go.
Okay. Can you hear me? Is my voice coming through? Yeah. Okay. First of all, Bernard, thank you. Thank you and Sensitive Skin for doing this. We definitely need more positive things to bring us together in this time when we're physically all apart. I write a lot of different genres. I was going to bring in a really snarky piece, which I still want to bring in a subsequent. But I chose tonight a piece I wrote 5 years ago. It's called Mendocino Diary. And I did that. One of my sisters wrote me and said, whatever you do, bring your funny stuff. We need to laugh.
Okay.
But you know, I didn't want to just do laugh. I wanted to do a little bit of poignancy as well. So you can be the judge of whether or not I do it. You may notice that.
All right, come on, read it already, man. Enough intro. Come on, read it already.
No, I wanted to say this. One of the characters in this, who I really wrote it for, has died in the 5 years past. So it's actually extra poignant for me.
Okay.
Mendocino Diary. Dear Diary, April 11th to 13th, 2015. Solo weekend in Mendocino. Long early morning, late night hikes in the headlands. Ruminations and heartfelt resolve to be better in all things. Temptation to talk to the big guy. Nah. But yield to the jagged beauty and pounding quiet. And the seals poking up their snouts in the kelp beds. The occasional spray from a gray whale headed north. And remind myself to be good, be kind, excel. Said rumination devolves, as it always does, into all the usual questions, the big 4. Is there a God? Who am I? What is my purpose? And why was Neil Diamond invited to the last waltz? Resolved, too, to finish my Mendocino piece, which is completely out of control, intended as a short story, and now makes the journals of the Corps of Discovery look like a haiku. I digress. Contos looking sharp in Giants versus Padres at Patterson's Pub, Pasta Primavera, Redbreast on the rocks, with Smithwick's back, and I listen to the chatter. Jordan Spieth quietly disrespecting his elders on the TV screen to the left. Woman on bar stool next to me, oblivious in her food and book, looks up and says, You're not a woman with black hair. I agree with her. Said Mendocino piece, as intended, has a lovely arc and a planned ending that will simply change the way the world looks at literature, clearly putting the name McAvoy alongside Twain, Bellows, Robinson, Percy, Le Guin, Angelou, Banville, Patchett, and on the short list for the Pulitzer. Expect to become ever more gruff and bristling over the ensuing years when labeled as a Western writer, in the company of Stegner, Doig, McGuane, etc. Problem is, said author is completely befuddled, building out all the stuff in between said arc and said epiphanic ending. Damn it, Joe, stop digressing. Gallery bookstore, quite decent, seeing Mr. David Duchovny's book next to the ones by celebrated Portland author Brian Doyle, and toying with the idea of telling those who peruse that the Duchovny piece is richer, more noble, deeper. Piss Doyle off just a bit. But I don't, though I really should, which reminds me, Doyle pays next time. Considering how to bring nuanced observations into my Mendocino piece, amazing the world with small touches, idea, how to bring forward the detail of Van the Man's carrying a torch, 3 minutes and 53 seconds in, as he screeches, yow, like a bald eagle flying invisible and low somewhere up the big river. For those who don't understand, listen. Abalone diving season began April 1st. The vans are pulled to the side of the road. Men and women and children climb into wetsuits and sort gear in line. Some flesh to be seen if one is looking. Some die this weekend, alas. Was thinking that Colin Farrell portraying me would be great if Mendocino piece made into major motion picture. Perhaps Brendan Gleeson as Van the Man, silhouetted and hulking as he walks along the headlands whispering, "Take me back, take me way, way, way back." The incessant concussive beating of the ocean on the headland's basalt and metamorphic rock. Grabbed a folding chair from the Allegria Inn and brought down to the beach where the big river empties into the most Pacific. Fell asleep in the sun and heard children laughing, dogs barking, and ocean roiling, and thought all is good. Most of the time, all is good. I love you, Kyle, Connor, and Julia. Oh yeah, and Riley too. Good dog, Riley. Oh you, my dear family and friends. Oh, Marilyn Robinson, how you intimidate me. How do you find such spiritual resonance in everything? And all I see is, well, spiritual resonance when I put my mind to it. I am as ever confused. Drive back to Sacramento via 128 through Anderson Valley. Soft folding green gold hills, cornflower blue sky, sheep like gigantic popcorn with long black monk faces. A huge king snake slithers across the road, veered so as not to hit it. Oh, Mendocino. The end.
Very good.
Hey, Bruce.
Bernard, you're muted. Bernard, you're
I
muted.
hear you.
You have to.
I muted myself. Ah, oh my goodness. The power went to my head. All right. Anyway, I just want to say thanks, Joe. Joe is new to the Sensitive Skin family. He sent us in a piece a couple of months ago over the transom. Good stuff. We do occasionally get good stuff over the transom. Although a typical, I can't tell you how many submissions I get where people are like, "Boy, I've been reading your magazine for years. I love it. It really speaks to me, and I'd like to send in a piece about psoriasis." Right? Sensitive skin, you know, whatever. And it's like, you never read our magazine. Anyway, all right. Our next reader is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she's also, everybody here has been published in Sensitive Skin. I should mention Joe's piece just came out last week. It's called Neil and Me. It's really funny. It's about his lifelong obsession with Neil Young. At any rate, here's Karen Lillis. from Pittsburgh.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, you're on. Everyone should clap for a second.
Yes, hear you.
Everybody's on now.
Everyone's on now, so go ahead and clap quickly.
Look at us little creatives now. Cat and I doing creatives when we're older.
I muted you all now again. And unmuting Karen. There we go.
Okay, am I on now?
You're on.
I'm on. Okay. This piece, the only thing I want you to know before I read it is that you know that Pittsburgh is associated with the steel industry, famously. But now that the steel industry is gone, all but gone, we are now dominated by the medical industrial complex. Can you hear me? Is this a good
Yeah,
one?
perfect.
All right. So this piece is called Liberty and Bomb, Pittsburgh, September 24th, 2009. I was disappointed to miss the G20 protests, but you were laid up in the hospital suffering the same cocktail that killed Andy Warhol, acute pancreatitis and medics who worked too hard and cared too little. The city had prepared more for the anarchists than for the dignitaries. Graffiti-proof plastic covered academic surfaces, while merchants tacked up plywood shields. Corner trash cans disappeared, post boxes, newspaper boxes, and in many cases they never came back. Warnings were issued. The world's extremist squatters are scouring Google Maps in search of houses left empty by industry's collapse. City officials like to boast that eds and meds have picked up where steel and coke left off, but it's not the whole story. I was living in the hospital alongside you, keeping notes on your regress, leaving only to feed the cats and take my meals at the diner, where the waitresses dressed like 21st century nurses. Their unisex scrubs floated loosely over places where their breasts and hips used to be, before Skin Flicks cornered the market on starched white uniforms. Shadowing you was like watching someone tread water underwater. In the absence of conversation, I read your body language, studied your animal sounds. You folded over in pain, shivered with chill, snarled in frustration. Some hours I listened only for your aspiration, sought hope in breath itself. It was an education being boxed inside the company of the company town. The RNs ran around checking off checklists like good factory workers, and the MDs updated virtual charts while everything beside us beeped in word. Night was never dark. On Thursday, the 1-block walk between your sickbed and my hot food was more dramatic than usual. Cops in riot gear stood 30 abreast, while kids in gas masks or bandanas dared them to give peace a chance. No one cared that I crossed the boulevard and tiptoed to the corner of Baum and Powhatan. Inside, the diner was teeming. On seafoam banquettes, policemen sat peacefully next to booths full of revolutionaries, as each party of 4 dissected the day's events so far over heavy plates of buckwheat pancakes or liver and onions. Megaphones, unlawful assemblies, pepper spray, tear gas, helicopters low, rubber bullets, armored vans, actions on every intersection from here to the park named Arsenal. The percussion of solidarity playing the backbeat to the marchers until the sound cannon split eardrums and the shiny plate glass of a fast food chain was smashed to gravel. Across the room, a family I knew welcomed me to their table. Volodya, Diane, and their grown son, Misha. They were fresh from a Q&A with Medvedev, where college students exercising their linguistics asked the Russian president questions of no importance. In the street, the stormtroopers were winning the Mexican standoff as they herded the action slowly towards the intersection of Liberty and Baum. Hundreds of policemen had come to town to face the radicals and the journalists. Diane was finishing a Western omelet, Misha was enjoying the meatless marinara, and Volodya was spread out with roast chicken breast, baked potato, black coffee, and the daily vegetables. I was waiting for a tuna melt and the moment when the doctors would admit anything about your organs, your pain level, the rate of survival for this sort of trouble. Suddenly, more action over on Liberty Avenue, the student marchers flexing their voices again. The cops toss canisters. Vapors rise from the asphalt. Diane and Misha jump up, run outside in the direction of the excitement. Volodya and I prefer to stay put with our widescreen view, our tabletop jukebox of Johnny Cash, Neil Young, Frank Sinatra, and other crooners who've seen it all. They told me I could become a citizen if I went to Vietnam, Volodya recalls. I tell myself that I need to stay out of jail so I can give your mother the nightly report for day 7 of the routine operation from hell. Back at the hospital, Nurse Jason was a revelation. I love you like a brother, man, he told you, and he meant it, even as he made you walk to the elevators and back to ward off atrophy or bed sores. He was different than the med tech who left blood all over your hand, different than the nurses who chanted, "How's my patient?" in voices too sunny and too strained, different than the gastroenterologist who barked at my questions as he backed out of the room. Nurse Jason asked me to make sure you take a shower soon, later today, if possible. Nurse Jason, with the kind voice and the tattooed forearms, assures me that all I need to do is say the word, and he'll bring me food or blankets, bring you warm socks or fresh sheets. Nurse Jason sees my grief and my need to feel useful. This hospital is much fancier than the Works Progress building where they took you when you fainted on the Port Authority. Here the front lobby looks like an insurance office or a convention hotel, with its wood-paneled reception desk, its plush armchairs, its tasteful wall-to-wall. In my back pocket is a copy of Ginsberg's Howl, Moloch the Incomprehensible Hospital, Moloch whose patients dream and croak in the factory streets. In the streets, the kids carry signs that say people before profits, no hope in capitalism, and a job is a right. In the streets and alleyways, the kids try every angle, every shortcut to reach the downtown summit and tell the world the real story in magic marker and hand lettering. In nursing schools, they teach Andy Warhol as a textbook case of hospital neglect. In the streets, the kids walk with arms linked, noses covered, mouths protected. In the streets, there's nothing to lose because the kids know that too much has been lost already. When healthcare is the place you go to die, that's it, the society's cooked. In my fears, you never wake from this morbid slumber, this painkiller haze. In the streets, these kids are like feral saints, lithe and unstoppable, as they run towards the global stage to demand the ears of kings or reporters. In the streets, the kids are ready to burst through every available crack in the blue line. In the streets, the kids are outnumbered today, but tomorrow there will be more marchers, and the next time, more. The longer it takes, the hungrier these kids are for a justice they'll believe when they see it. In the streets together, their limbs are only getting more nimble, their voices more practiced, their legs faster, leaner, stronger. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. All right, thank you, Sharon. That was great. All right.
Very good.
Let's see. All right, it's time for my favorite poet from Nashville.
New York. I don't.
I gotta mute everybody, and now I will unmute Rebecca. I'm gonna get smoother at this, I swear. All right, Rebecca, where?
Okay. I will first say I still chafe that I'm from Nashville, but I guess I've been here a few years now, but still New York. And I just want to plug my book like Buddy did. And Bernard Meisler, great publisher and really supportive friend and terrific guy. If you want to buy this, just go on Sensitive Skin. You'll find the link.
King of the Fireflies.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should say that. King of the Fireflies. I'm going to read a few poems from the book and a few new poems. And I'll try, I have my special clock with me, so I won't go over. Nature lesson. I don't know what's inside this once new black walnut. Someone picked it unmarred and bright from the wet ground and said, smell this. I had to press it to my nose. After 5 days on the table, the wrinkling, speckling seed or shell, which I couldn't tell, had changed. The tough skin today, like a spoiling lime, has kept guarding the tang of damp woods in fall, burnt and shady, while also greenly still alive. Yet even that scent has faded farther in. What I'd like is to carve this open with a small, sharp knife. If the heart can't reveal its own secret being, nothing can. And now, this shriveling globe, its center hidden, offers only faint clues and tiresome supposition. I'm holding this roundness right in the curve of my palm. It's not enough. Here's the first cut. Watch closely. I'm going to pause to cough. I don't want to cough into my... Okay, that's actually not a worrisome cough. And the next two poems I wrote when I lived in Maine, and I guess the first one is sort of an aeronautic poem, and the second one I would call a sea poem. In Flight. It has two parts. Part one. Up here we believe in night, trusting things to blacken on schedule. And up here, nothing alters that. Once we've passed the sun, there's usually the moon dipping and stars snapping into formation. There's also the chance no planet will bother with us. The wing disappears, blindness joins our vocabulary as does terror. Sometimes there's no one down there, too. Above your town, I consider bailing out. I perch at the plain's edge, then enter the swirl of night clouds. Falling, the sky sliding by like hair, I search for a sign of light. Your cows will bring me in, lifting their white faces where it's safe to land. And this is Song for a Cargo Ship. Midnight, the fog disappears, and pacing the sleeping house, I see across the water a freighter. Its levels lit like a carnival city. Those foreign sailors waiting for port must wonder at our darkened town. For me, these hours bring no peace. A husband who snores, a child who wakes in fear, parents who've suddenly aged. This time I'm shipping out, joining the crew on their journey. I'll learn the language, concoct meals of iridescent fish, then dance on deck all night in summery white, while the sea keeps settling around us. Now I'm gathering my records of international folk songs, my bird whistles from 8 countries. Now I stand on shore with an armful of beach roses, waving my straw hat like a flag. I shout greetings. Soon they'll let the lifeboat down. Soon we'll be lifting anchor. This was a poem in my book that I added at the last minute, and I know it was very annoying for my special editor, but it's called Missing. Radio silence sets in. Who said we seek that solitary, songless, and sweetless time? Why would we? I'm going to stop saying that I do. Someone played piano for me, and someone once before that, like in 2 poems I read, wherein each a grown man remembers a parent playing and himself sitting underneath or next to the thick strings vibrating into every chamber of being. I hear heart and soul, and then it's my own father's hands with mine. I hear Scott Joplin and the old and new standards, and it's someone else I'll love. It all fills me up. Its absence is what empties me. The dial turned all the way to the right and not a sound. This is another new poem. This is a Nashville poem for sure. Up the hill. A bull, or was it a cow, came to the door where a snake, half ivory, half silk, lived and looked me sidelong in the eye, chewing something slowly and flaring its wet nostrils in the quiet night. A white kitten was scampering under its cloven feet. I don't believe that hoofs or horns make the devil, but I've been known to visit that dark where the stars cast the only light as the sinking moon passes out of the sky. I wanted to stay where the bovine breath came close and no one was sure if it was safe to slide by and away. This poem is an answer to a poem by the poet Luke Powers, who lives in Nashville, and his poem is called Parable of the Osage Orange. This is called The Parable, Part 2, and I'm not comparing myself to Matthew Arnold or Anthony Heck, but they sort of had an answer back and forth, Dover Beach and then Dover Bitch. And this is coming out in the Seneca Review any day now. Give me back those Osage fruits, the glowing green globes, deeply crimped, sticking slightly to the hands, left in the musty car that day. For years, she tells him this only in her mind, never calling them oranges of any kind, though the smell of their faint breath was like an exotic citrus concoction which slides on the tongue, the taste of pale lemon blossom in a dish, pleasure so impossibly divine it should last forever but won't. We could remember all those things, she says, but don't. Perhaps no one forgets. Are they rotten yet in their once bright time? Will he ever find another tree of fallen bounty and gather more to bring her as treasure, an offering of renewal or else of regret? This poem, my mother passed away. It's going to be 2 years in May. And I guess when you hear it, you'll see what it's about. And it's called Ringed. I wear the heaviness of my mother's rings, the deep shaded carnelian, burgundy slab, and the vein malachite oblong green. I don't usually favor silver, plus they're huge even on my own large, long hands. My sister thought they'd been gifts from me, so she said to take them, that I didn't know how she had to pry them from the cold fingers, how I would never feel those final moments. She described my mother's last angers, the slamming her knuckles, banging these stones on the bedside table where the 6 small bottles of water were just where I'd left them the day before when she called out, "Goodbye, my darling, you saved my life, thank you." Later on the phone, in an answer to me, "Don't worry, I don't want to die. I'll try to drink. I'm going to have some soup soon." Her hands were never without those 2 rings, too big on thick bands and constantly twirling around. They weigh me down. Maybe though they actually ground me. After a while, they might seem almost weightless, become a part of me like my grief, that flattening loss, now merely merged. Just a couple more, checking my time. Buddy, give me a signal. Am I okay so far? What does that say? I can't see you. Is that okay? I guess I'll just read 2 last quick ones. Mornings. Back then, there was the shiny air and grass from the dew when you were 3, playing under the Japanese maple, and the milkman stopped in his van to chat with your mother. Bright times continued. The ocean encircled your next town like blue-green glass. It might have invented those broken bottle scraps, smooth and luminescent, you collected from its beach. Mornings sing good promises when they begin in such ways. They kept them sometimes, even as you shifted from place to place. This is why you walk along the gravel road today at the right time for that still, wet light to surround you, and it does, but not how it was. Your memory replays all the other days that luckily started the same, with the grass or sand fresh and untrammeled, held under some not too harsh sun that was kinder than it would later become, and the world as ragged with it. You can't concentrate with these recollections unfolding before you like scenery on a painted paper fan. You imagine standing in a sort of meadow and discovering the shadows of your history had left no crush or stain on the soft stalks waving and shimmering. You lie on your back, even with eyes closed. Here is the only spot you are, as if with a new lover, it could be the very first time and you could start again. I just have one more short one, and I'm reading this because when I first had my first poem in Sensitive Skin, I hadn't met anyone, and we had a reading at the Bowery Poetry Club, which I hope we'll all do again sometime. And I did read this, and it's on a little video, way younger days on YouTube and the Sensitive Skin site. And the title of my book came from this poem. Walking toward me. When the fireflies switch on, you're the king. They trace your shape like a giant halo. The dahlias in the garden still pop pinkly in the twilight, now with its yellow and green highlights of these bugs kids capture in rattle-lidded jars or squeeze tight fists to hold the glow. It sifts out like water or sand they want to scoop from summer's days and not let go. This is how you come to me at the fold of hours into dusk. I've been waiting. Thank you, Bernard, and thank you all for being here. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Rebecca Weiner Tompkins. And again, her book, King of the Fireflies, is available on Amazon. And our next reader is Anton. And I'm gonna. Such a bad headache. And he is the author of Yesenin, the last poet of the village, which is probably the most comprehensive translation of the great Russian poet Sergei Yesenin. For those of you who are not familiar with him, he was writing in the early part of the 20th century, and his arch rival at the time was Vladimir Mayakovsky. Many more Americans have heard of Mayakovsky than have heard of Yesenin. Mayakovsky is, maybe along with Walt Whitman, like the grandfather of the beats. I don't have a copy of Anton again because I'm in the middle of a move. I do have, there it is, Last Poet of the Village, and this is also Mayakovsky Maximum Access. This is also another fine book we've published. But at any rate, Yesenin is probably the most popular Russian
Sherlock
poet.
Holmes inspection. This is Carrie speaking.
Oops, I gotta mute you all. Yeah, he's probably the most popular Russian poet after Pushkin. Somebody told me I'm not sure if it was you, if it was maybe even another Russian American friend of mine, that basically everybody in Russia knows 2 or 3 of his poems by heart. They're used in popular music, even today. So this is like a really great service that Anton did by translating his poems into American. And it's a side-by-side translation for those of you who are Russian scholars out there. So at any rate, yeah. Here's Anton Yakovlev.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay? No problem? Is my voice?
We're good.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll start with reading a couple of translations from Yesenin, from the book, which, Bernard just talked about, and then a couple of my own poems. High water has licked the silt with smoke. The moon has dropped its yellow rains. Paddling a punt, I bump into banks. Red haystacks by the fence rails look like churches. With mournful cawing, Into the silence of marshes, the black grouse is calling for vespers. In a blue gloom, the grove shrouds the destitution. Secretly, I will pray for your future. How good, in the freshness of fall, to let the wind shake the soul's apple tree, and to watch the plow of the sun cut through water above the river. How good to strike out of one's body a nail that turns songs red hot, to put on festive white clothes, and to wait for a guest to knock on the door. I am learning in my heart to preserve the color of cherry trees in my eyes. Only austerity lets feelings survive when the ribcage threatens to crack open. Wordless, the belfry of stars is booming. Every leaf is a candle for the dawn. I won't let anyone in my room. I won't let anyone through the door. And one more. The Golden Grove has spoken its last in its merry birch language, and the herons, joylessly in flight, no longer lament anyone. Why lament? Everyone is a nomad, passing by, walking in, then leaving again. The hemp-filled daydreams of all who are gone. A wide moon hangs over the blue pond. I stand alone on the barren plain while the wind blows away the herons. I'm full of thoughts about my cheerful youth, but I regret nothing. I don't regret the wasted years. I don't regret the lilac blooms. In the garden, the rowan is red as a bonfire, but it gives no warmth to anyone. The rowan branches won't burn out. The yellow won't kill the grass. Just as a tree quietly drops leaves, I drop sad words. And if time piles them all in one useless lump, blown away by the wind, just say that the Golden Grove has spoken its last in its lovely language. And I'll read some of my poems. This first poem is called Anxiety. And all the cashiers in the chocolate store loved them. No occasion to dream of poison. So much was said through eye contact, even when there was none. Their little corner welcomed blossoms while they sat speed reading. No restraining orders. Not that much death. The endorphins of a harmless question holding on to the face across the water. A walking tour of an office park, a marina, a labyrinth, a novella. Everything rhymed. His family, an indispensable cairn, pines on the seashore, silence at the movies. Memory. It got colder. The cashiers smiled. She sat for hours in the graveyard. He liked holiday lights and peeking into embassies on Sunday. They soaked their feet in puddles. Eyes closed, she painted. And when they imagined spies all around, they touched. No matter the play they went to, it was the way their knees pressed against each other. One day, she got a tattoo, but the waves washed it off. One moment, no whales were visible. The next moment, no whales were visible. Not that much death. They attended canonization parties together. Hot air balloons touched waterfalls. Satellites flew too high to see or to hear. Rot. Not that it's any better at home. When you work at night, curtains curl themselves into vessels of grief. A stone melts under glass. A nomad fishes birds out of a lethe. An ancient text is touched by the saints, which doesn't make it any less devoid of meaning. A minute won't pass without a new sound. cracking walls, breaking bones, nerve cells dying. Your knees bend down to eat dirt. You pray to that big knob in the sky, the doorknob on the gates of heaven's labor camp. Your prayer is a mutant tiger. It rises over the horizon, obsessively calling attention to itself because you need to destroy to stand a chance at living. It pushes itself beyond the quicksand it knew and kind of liked up to a point. It tears you up, leaving skeletal fractions with new proportions to explore and limbs to build. Maybe something wonderful will be born. Maybe a new god with a marshmallow ear, or at least a chariot you can use to Apollo the fuck out of here. I held her like a pencil drawing. That was my first mistake. Whoever expected us to become the best movie of the decade needs to go home and become a better person. The rain stayed right where it fell. Even shadows failed better than we. Perhaps I could have still become her John the Baptist. She wouldn't have had to be Salome. Funny how a hand gesture can make one's year. 1 second, she's a statue in a crypt. The next second, she's a full moon. Tides of skyscrapers obeyed her. Birds learned her songs. Dogs bit each other at not having her in their lives. I could have jumped on the riptide, but a park ranger stopped me. I think about her lost photo albums, what iceberg has now absorbed them in the Arctic Ocean. Who doesn't know the feeling? You dive, and there it is, nibbled by belugas. And then you take up residence in a neighboring Coast Guard station and drink. Who wouldn't? For 6 months, you stare at a sketch of an aborted pipeline. Eventually, it gets easier. You go back to your ancestral secondary city. A skeleton of a boy you knew rules the landscape. And I'm going to end with a poem called Regret. Later in life, we enter the neighborhood bookstore and survey the new arrivals. We leaf through the best-selling picture book about the moon that bites people. Down from the sky, it swoops and takes a chunk right out of you, a big chunk. Sometimes a whole limb, a spleen, a heart. The moon is always Big Brother, and at the most counterintuitive moment, it will come down and sink its teeth into you. Could happen to any of us. Sometimes it dispenses life lessons. That may be the most dispiriting part. The moon might put a bromide in your ear about what to do if at first you don't succeed, then bite your ear right off, or even your head. Children of all ages must be telling each other in hushed voices about the moon's victims and the shades of pink the trees acquire while the moon gently creeps. Isn't this amazing, you say? I wish I had thought of this. This is the freshest thing I've seen in years. I cannot help but agree and notice how your jawline, which used to fascinate me till morning, reflects the sun, except for the eclipses. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you,
Bravo,
Anton.
excellent.
Yay.
That was great. That was great. And well, I was going to say something. Never. I'll talk to you after. I'll talk to you after. All right. We're getting towards the end of our delightful program, and our next reader is where are you? I'm not seeing you. Sharon,
I'm here.
you're here. Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay.
The pink glove.
I got you. The glove. All right. I'm going to mute all you other motherfuckers. Excuse my pardon my horrible language, and unmuting Sharon. So Sharon is one of the original co-founders of the Flarf poetry movement, and I love her work. And I love Sharon too.
My work loves you.
Aw. And well, yeah, we're running out of time, so
Yeah, I gotta hurry up now.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. This is my new book. Came out 5 years ago, but it's still new. This is called Hey Shitheads. Hey shitheads. Greetings, peeps. Salutations, shitheads. Sup, lady pupperoos. Top of the morning, infant mortalities. Hi-ho, D-bag diocesans. Ahoy, tiny synod. What do you know, quorum buttheads? Where you headed, sexy deckhands? Aloha, Tupperware party sluts. Bonjour, manic batshits. New, me skites and putzes. Salute, Yankee Doodle fuckwads. Konnichiwa, Kimosabis and associated roadkill droobs. K-tal, Canadian bob splotches and your ass-hatted play cousins. Guten Tag, minivan bro jobs creating vortexes of Fat Tuesday Jew-fro madness. Dzień dobre, bigged up besties with underboobs and side cleavage walking waffle dogs in knit booties. Hola, bearded man bun wearing chuds with earbuds staring blankly at me from the line outside the archival mayonnaise cafe. Ça va, cupcake jakes from State Farm embarking upon a cray-cray spring break of baking at the beach. Namaste, boogers laughing at earwax. Hey there, bingo whores turned horse-faced academics. Howdy doody, car wash pandas, sassy baptism poodles, and hopscotch tournament pygmy goats. Hail, Appalachians with Yiddish-themed vision boards who paid actual money to see the Passion of the Christ. Peekaboo, Parsi speaking Farsi underneath 3 19th century barkeeps swarmed by bees. Boy, howdy, dumbass equine center friends, you are everything. Cheers, hospital gift shop cashiers, I feel your pain. Yo, fans of mooning during the day, I am you. Whoa, bright eyes with lice crawling out of your neck fuzz, dropping a bottle of Summer's Eve into a muffin basket I left in the cemetery. Your mankini ruined my vacation. Hold up, trailer bros. Go ahead, walk into my yard and take a few cement blocks for your own mysterious purposes. If I catch you in Starbucks again, I will poop in your lattes. Stop right there, able-bodied dingleberries and doobheads standing in the aisles who don't realize you need to move your asses to the back of the bus so others can get on. It's the snowpocalypse out there, so leave work early and get all your groceries at the gas station. Fuck off in advance, Balkan hombreros and your smelly aftershave. I knew you were up to some shit when you brought umbrellas to Bonnaroo. Would you have sex with Prince? I know he's dead. I'm still working this out myself. Attention, Rose of Sharon's. For me, the rose is a symbol of hatred. You must treat this beautiful thing like a beast. You must deprive it of necessities. You must beat it back with weapons. I'll give you a moment to clean up the mess your downstairs parch just made after you got dry fucked by my beautiful truth-telling. You're welcome. And P.S., platonic Tomodachis and backstabbing internet friends, Brosama bin Ladens and face bitch buddy boys, shade-throwing sideline haters, heterosexual second friends, token POC pals, goyisher honky doyens and fuckaduck sausage neighbors. Seeing as I am way too busy these days lap dancing for emeritus members of the Buzz Aldrin Marriage Events fan club to care about the cats scratching your cars at night, I'm saying, buonasera, fili di puttana. Buenos noches y adios, hermanos feos. I am sick of all of you not coming to my nightly Talking Heads tribute at the Walgreens bottle drop kiosk. I am casting a major black magic feces spell on you and all your emotions for the entire month of August. Until then, listen for my wind chimes. Yeah, wind chimes. 'Cause nothing says greetings peeps, I hate my neighbors like wind chimes.
Oh my God! That's great. That's so good. That is great. Wow.
One more or no? Done?
Wow.
What? Thank you. Should I just read one more?
Yes, do it.
Do it.
This is my honky Methodist police favorites.
Holy shit.
The honky Methodist police look like I feel. Like rusty bakeware exposed to some new off-road dude electrocution project. Dude, believe me when I tell you that the only holiday honky Methodist police celebrate is that day 6 years ago when Bruno Mars was surprised. Total props to those guys because Bruno Mars is a total cheeseball who cannot draw a hand turkey for shit. To offset bad karma acquired through my involvement with the honky Methodist police, I turned down a major offer to join Megadeth. No, it was not the trombones. It was so not the trombones, unless we're speaking rhetorically, in which case the answer is $900 worth of honky Methodist trombones and police. Right now, the honky Methodist police are knee-deep in their own honky Methodist doo-doo because depending on who you ask, Willie Nelson is either a country music trailblazer, America's favorite stoner, or the guy who said, I didn't come here so I ain't leaving, or a hillbilly who loves the boot scoop flavor of the empty snuff jar at the Cuban Hebrew Center. The Methodist police know the real story about where the ancient foreskin of baby Jesus and his 2,000-year-old blintzes are buried at the Cuban Hebrew Center of Miami, guarded by Professor Miss Tippy and her SoCal sidekick, Extension Cord Girl, and 100 Methodist police honkies in law enforcement. Ha! I lied about that last thing. Why? Because the honky Methodist police took my limited blood supply and made it into a free-huffing, ointment-rubbing, radical feminist zine called Summer Maggots and then some more maggots. I'm okay with that, actually, because maggots move like the ocean, sloshing back and forth against each other like the rocking lull of waves. They look like a pile of romantic white worms. That's why they are the beloved mascots of the honky Methodist police. It's a shame space maggots haven't gotten their day. Space maggots never worry about anything because there are always enough astronaut organs floating between Earth and Neptune to feed their insatiable quest for protein. Space maggots have life goals too, unlike the honky Methodist police who are still applying their under-eye concealer like fucking amateurs. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes.
Sharon. That's awesome.
I've never messed with
Thank you, Sharon.
Bernard's turn.
Thank you, Sharon.
Hey, Carrie.
Bernard, it's your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Oh, for heaven's sake. So this is my book. There's never been a better time to die. And it's like
Great.
Great. It's a fake mythic. It's basically, I'm a big fan of noir. This is like my main character. A couple of people got it. This is like taken straight from James M. Cain, you know. And then, but anyway, it's a story about a realtor in Valley, California, which is where I'm currently living the next 3 days. He stumbles across an old murder case, or does he? We don't know. At any rate, he's at one point he's thrown in jail. Then he's bailed out by his brand new coworkers who he's never really met before. So again, he went to this estate sale and found some mysterious stuff in an attic. Thinks he stumbled on a crime, and he starts talking like a 40s detective for really no reason.
Just read the goddamn story.
And mute
poem. Read the poem.
And mute
All right.
us.
All right, I got to
Yes.
mute y'all. Here you
Yeah.
go.
Sorry, I thought I was muted.
I did too. Oh, look, the last participants.
Read the poem.
No. All right, I'm almost. Ah! All right, are you
We
muted?
could just mute ourselves.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're all muted. Okay. All right. Right, estate sales. That's how this mess all, wait a minute. Yeah, that's how this mess all started. Probably better if I didn't dredge Kirsten's garage. I'd probably find something I didn't want to. Everybody's got a lost tortoise of some kind. We silently descended the winding streets till we reached Tiburon Boulevard. The way the Prius didn't make any noise creeped me out. Supposedly, a lot of blind people have been run over by Priuses because you can't hear them coming. We hung a Roscoe and headed over to the ghetto, as the swells in Tiburon refer to Mill Valley. Tiburon was where the wealthy lived. Folks in Mill Valley are just rich. You know what the difference is between rich and wealthy? Rich people buy courtside seats at Warriors games. Wealthy people own the Warriors. Everything's relative, I guess. Mill Valley is a ghetto of sorts. Sure, there were loads of new upscale McMansions, but it was still peppered with plenty of unrestored teardowns, many of them still occupied by burnt out leftover hippies who paid 10 grand for their hovel 40 years ago. The present day buyers are banking on getting their own massive payoff. I mean, why else would a couple making $300K a year between them take on a 10 grand a month mortgage, willingly become house poor if they weren't sure their $2 million ranch house wasn't going to be worth $10 million in a decade or two? Prices were going up 25% a year. Prices never go down. Not in Southern Marin. It's a one-way rocket ship to the moon. That's what I told my clients, and they believed me because, just like Fox Mulder, they wanted to believe. Hey, if they don't understand compound interest, believe trees grow to the sky, and in trickle-down economics, that's not my fault. Who am I to talk people out of their delusions if it makes them happy? Where would we be without our delusions? I should say one thing. This takes place in 2008, right before the big housing crash. We cruised past Blackie's pasture with the life-size bronze sculpture of the eponymous horse who once grazed there. Blackie was a former cavalry horse who fed in this very field for 28 years until his death in 1966. The Tiburonites never got over it and erected a statue in his honor in 1995. I find this fascinating. I heard that sociopaths reserve their minimal feelings for babies and animals. I don't know why. Low stakes? If it's true that behind every great fortune is a great crime, that meant there were a lot of criminals in Tiburon. Not street outlaws prone to violence, but crooks nonetheless. And most crooks are sociopaths, so it made sense that these moneyed entitletarians would memorialize a horse that had been dead for 30 years instead of one of their more famous human scions, say Pat Paulson, Mariel Hemingway, Eve Arden, or Courtney Thomas Smith. We crossed the 101 and entered Mill Valley proper. Tiburon turns into Mill Valley half a mile or so before the highway, but that neighborhood is known as Strawberry, and friends don't let friends live in Strawberry, though I've sold my fair share of cot houses there. Better than Novato, I guess. Novato is the worst place in the world, a scorched earth post-apocalyptic wasteland overrun by mutant freaks. Better you should live in Somalia. You know what Novato means in Spanish? Don't go to. At least that's how folks in Southern Marin feel about it. Another quick note, that's where I'm moving on Friday. Another thing, I don't know why they call it the 101 instead of 101 like we would on the East Coast, or maybe even Route 101, but they do. They put a the in front of all the highways, like take the 101 to the 280, then get on the 85 or whatever. Another Californian unsolved mystery. No surprise, a traffic jam. As we crawled over the bridge, I saw what was causing the backup. A mattress in the middle lane of the northbound 101. How much can a used mattress cost from Goodwill? 50 bucks, tops? And you know they've cleaned and fumigated. Why then do I constantly see old beater cars, usually a rust bucket vintage Accord, packed with riffraff with a mattress precariously tied to the top? Who in their right mind would take a used mattress from somebody and tie it to their roof? On the other hand, Mitt Romney once tied his dog to the roof of his car, and he might be president someday. So who knows why people do what they do? For God's sake, there are people out there who prefer Journey to the Dead, like Chicago-style deep dish pizza more than coal oven, and think Rescue Me is better than Deadwood. But haven't these mattress carting dopes heard about the bedbug epidemic? I wish at least somebody had been a Boy Scout so they'd learn how to tie a damn knot and the mattresses wouldn't fall willy-nilly on the highway all the goddamn time. If you listen to the traffic reports on AM 720, you'll hear at least once a week, mattress obstruction on the 101, as if the highways weren't messed up enough already. Bay Area traffic is terrible, and it's especially bad in Mill Valley, as there are only 3 ways out of town, and they're all single lane. Rush hour is a nightmare. We all have our crosses to bear. The street narrowed from 2 lanes to 1 as we made our way onto East Blythedale, right before the Chevron station. A black SUV sidled up on our left, not slowing down to let us pass or speeding up to get ahead of us. Kirsten had to lay on the brakes so we didn't get run off the road. I opened my window, stuck my middle finger up high, and gave him a spinning motion so the douchebag could see how I felt about his driving. A Lexus, of course. Jesus, road rage much? Kirsten asked as I slumped back in my seat. He cut us off. So what? It's my civic duty to let him know he's an asshole. I'm sure he knows already. People are very self-aware in this town, what with all the therapy, meditation, self-improvement courses at Spirit Rock. It's barely noon, and you've already crossed paths with one asshole. You know what they say. I didn't want to ask who they were. What? If you run into more than 3 assholes in a day, you're one of them. I'd have to remember that. Didn't really make sense, but it sort of did. Good line to drop at a cocktail party. It occurred to me that Kirsten was being kind of an asshole. That made 2 today already. I'd better watch my step. That's it.
That's awesome.
Great. Yay.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Let's do this again.
Let's do it again.
Yes.
Yes, please, again. Yes.
Yes. All right. So I was thinking probably just do this like on Tuesdays and then maybe special events in between. I was talking with the awesome underground writer Stuart Home, who lives in London. I don't know if you're familiar with Stuart Home, anybody, but he's fantastic and famous for doing meetings while standing on his head.
Wow.
He's like a very English punk rock writer. Great stuff. So anyway, we might do one on Saturday, but if anyone's interested in participating.
Can we make recommendations for people who would be cool to read?
Sure.
How about Mia?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey!
So Liza well, there's Mia. Yeah, Mia,
I'm here. Yay!
Here.
Hey!
You know, a lot of people actually said they wanted to do this, but they couldn't make tonight for whatever reason. But we got a pretty good crowd for our first go around. And that's fun, right? It's fun, right? It's fun to see everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my first time.
Me too.
Yeah.
First time.
My first time.
Good work.
Yeah, this Zoom thing is pretty cool. This is
Yeah.
this is how all colleges are doing all their classes now, or high schools or whatever. Everybody's doing online learning this way because it works a million times better than like Facebook or
And
Google.
musicians are doing it too. They're playing together with Zoom. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's a fun way to get out of the house while staying in.
Absolutely.
So thanks again.
No traffic.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
I can't shake
Good night,
hands.
all.
Nice
I hear you.
to hear you. Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Bye.
Good evening,
So
everyone.
awesome.
Good evening.
Buddy, thank you. It was awesome.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Everybody's great.
Bye.
Thank you. All
Bye,
right.
Daddy.
Bye.
Love the work.
Bye.
Really good. Thanks for reading from your book.
Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, thanks to Karen, Anton, Joe, Rebecca, Sharon. They're all gone.
Everything
you.
was awesome.
Really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I think we'll just I think I'm going to just schedule these next one Tuesday night. So same back- same
Great.
back.
Very good, Bernard.
All right. Thank you, Patricia. All right, everybody. Take care.
Yes.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Good luck.
Bye. Bye-bye. Mwah.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Virtual
Bye-bye, all.
kiss.
Good night.
Good
Stay
luck.
safe.
Good luck.
No, oh,
Virtual
Bye.
kisses.
All
Bye,
right.
Miss Bree.
All right. Good night, everybody.
good night, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.